So welcome again to our ongoing series of Get to Know Our Scientists. Today we're joined by Becky, who's come all the way from England wearing her Converse tennis shoes. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Becky and I have been working in the pharmaceutical area for over 20 years now. I started as a bench scientist in DMPK and progressed through setting DMPK strategy and then using modelling and simulation as part of that strategy setting. And then after a number of years, I decided it was time to make the jump and make modelling and simulation my full-time job. So I was lucky enough to be able to do that within the same pharma company. And after maybe 3 or 4 years of that, I decided it was time to learn from the experts and was lucky enough to get offered a position at Simulations Plus.
So you've been in this space for 2 decades.
Yeah, thanks.
And it doesn't show. That's good. How has it changed?
Well, I guess when I started, everything was quite new. SIP P450 was an evolving area. So in that time, we've added more and more complexity to the mechanisms and the ability to model those complex things like transporters, for example, has really shifted. And also the expectation, I guess, around how much you need to know about your molecule to get a successful product under your belt. I think that's grown as well over that time.
Have you found one of the things that I've seen in industry in general is the highly siloed nature of data? Do you see that that's been changing over that period of time?
I think so. I think in some ways it started off being very not siloed. Then it went into those silos as the areas grew. And I think for a while, each area was quite inward focused as they tried to grow themselves. And now we're almost like we're coming out of that cycle again. And people are more outward facing. And definitely in terms of modelling and simulation, I think the best models I've been a part of over my career have been ones that have been driven by a team. So you have the expert in the software and the modelling per se, but then you have the experts in the data, because it's really important to know how the data is generated, any kind of pros and cons, any gaps, and that can come from the specialist in the area. And so as a modeller, I believe you have to really appreciate that whilst you know the mechanisms in your model, you can always learn from the scientists that have generated that data to try and make it into this holistic whole.
You say that you've come from industry. What do you do here at Simulations Plus?
So here I'm in the Sim Studies group, which is focused on providing support for clients. So doing the modelling projects for them, be that first time in human predictions, be that formulation support, be it regulatory, doing the models for regulatory submission, things like DDI. So that's the majority of my time. I supervise some other scientists within that group and provide them modelling support as well. I also contribute to the new software development and do a bit of training for external clients as well. So it's fantastic. Every day is different. The modelling projects you get given can span a huge range, much wider than when you're in the pharma industry, in my experience. And then you have all these added facets on top.
That's great. Where do you work?
I work in my office, otherwise known as the spare bedroom, in my house in the UK. And obviously that has its pros and cons as well. I love the commute. I love the work-life balance it can give me, especially given that a lot of my colleagues are on Californian time. So that's a lot easier to deal with because I can work from home. And the cons here are around building relationships. I think you have to be more open when you're a remote worker, because you need to have that personal connection to build those relationships, which is much harder to do remotely.
How long have you been with Simulations Plus?
I've been with them now just over a year.
So over a year. What was the biggest surprise coming here?
Probably the range of data you get given. So I was really spoiled before because most of the data I got, it came to me from the same assay providers in the same format. Whereas here, everybody does it slightly differently. So all your clients have their own way of doing things. And so really not knowing what you're going to receive, that's what I found the biggest surprise.
And you said you manage a team. How do they interface with the clients? Given the fact that we're coming out of COVID, do you expect that you'll be doing actual face-to-face visits?
I think we hope so. Maybe towards the beginning of next year. So at the moment, everything is remote, and we tend to take our leads from the clients. So some clients love having the cameras on. Some are much happier just to be a voice. So yeah, we're really led by the clients.
Mm-hmm. And you have an audience here. What would you tell someone that might be considering coming to Simulations Plus? What would be a reason to do that?
As an employee?
Yeah.
I think it's the ability to learn from the experts. And then on top of that, it's the variety of the projects that you get to witness. And even if you're not actively doing them yourself, we share learnings every week. So you always get exposure to those additional projects. And then on top of that, I think one of the things that I was most relieved about when I joined was how generous people were with their time. Because as I said, working remotely, you always worry that you're going to be very isolated. But that really isn't the case. People are very generous with their time, from everything from science questions to the more kind of logistical questions. Mm-hmm. There's a whole range of people that are happy to help.
You probably interfaced with consulting companies at your previous employer. Mm-hmm. How is Simulations Plus different than some of those consulting companies?
Obviously, we're better, right?
Well, I hope so.
But no, I think it's the level of expertise we can bring, right? Because we've seen, as a collective, we've seen a lot of projects, a lot of molecules, a lot of mechanisms. And so I think it's that combined wisdom that Simulations Plus has found a really good way of kind of conduiting through all our employees.
So what question didn't I ask you that you'd want to be able to answer?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think if there's one piece of advice I would give my clients, it would be to don't wait to share things with us until you're asked. Because like I said before, every client has a different way of doing things, different data that they generate. And we don't always know it's exactly what data we need to be able to build the best model. So, just overshare. That would be my piece of advice.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Becky.